Well, good evening, everyone. It is Tuesday, September the 23rd, 2014. One more Tuesday to go, and we're into, well, I guess we are officially fall now, aren't we? That happened yesterday. Big congrats to my youngest. My baby is 14. And why are we here tonight? Well, I hope like how we have everybody. But we're here to play some Conflicted the Survival card game. Going to do some uh, the round table. Uh, oh boy, looks like we are missing quite a few people.
That's not good.
Well, we have you, Susan.
Woohoo!
Phones are coming. I hope I remember how to answer them. But why are we here? We're here to play some Conflicted the card game. If you haven't gotten decks yet, get them. They are quite handy in your prepper stash, in your knowledge base, and it's a series of 52 cards, just like a deck, and it has all kinds of questions on them about what you would do in certain situations. So 3 decks are out right now, 2 standard decks, and 1 that is based off of G. Michael's latest book, The New World series. And they are, like I said, great tools. I know there's a lot coming up with that. So we're trying to multitask right now and failing miserably. Alrighty, hang on one second here. We're going to try this again. Okay, so with me tonight, I know for certain we have the Deer Farmer's wife. So Susan, welcome back to the show.
Well, thank you as always, dear.
And it looks like we're waiting for a couple other people to join us.
Hopefully.
Jay, did you join in? Or there's a problem with the call. God, I love
Hello.
Skype.
Yay!
Is that you, JD?
Yes.
Woohoo!
Can you all hear me?
We can.
Cool.
Why don't you tell everybody what's going on with the decks themselves? Because I know you have a lot coming up.
Yes, we have a few surprises for you guys for the end of the year. First one, the American deck is gonna go out to pre-order probably by the first week of October. I got the sample decks; they look good.
Awesome.
Sent some out to A American, but he's busy going off the grid, so I don't know if I'm going to hear back from him.
Yeah, he's got some kind of secret, I'm the ultimate survival guy thing going on right now, doesn't he?
Yeah, pretty intense, man. He's going to be doing some Bear Grylls stuff on his own with nobody around but a camera. So it should be pretty crazy. So maybe we should spice things up tonight, and we'll give away one of the unreleased A American decks.
Oh,
Ooh.
cool. Sounds good to me. We're going to have to get some kind of ridiculously hard question, aren't we?
Yes. If we can all handle it.
Well, it's been an interesting week, that's for sure. Ed, did you make it on with us?
Yeah, I believe I did.
Yeah. Hey, we got everybody. I haven't heard from John, so we're wishing him the best out there. Not sure where he's at. And then Alika is still off the grid also. Should be back next week. He had an unexpected trip that he had to take. So should have the full team back next week.
Cool.
Okay, so a couple of things let's get into, because there's been a lot, and I know a lot of people are a little antsy right now. But let's start with the obvious elephant in the room. ISIS. We went to war with Syria yesterday. Not necessarily with Syria itself, but going after what we've been told are the bad guys from all accounts and purposes. But a lot of chatter out there about what kind of hornet's nest we have just stirred up here. So, Susan, what are your thoughts on, what's going on over here with this, considering what have you heard?
Well, I guess I'm having kind of a hard time with the whole situation because, after you and I talked last night, and, depending on what news show you, excuse me, what news show you watch or what news source you read, it's the same story, but it's not, and I find that difficult. And I guess the other issue I'm really having is if all of these people are here in the United States and we're stirring up a hornet's nest somewhere else, per se, what the heck do they think they're going to do here?
Yeah, well, we saw, 2 weeks ago, 2 guys disappeared out of Washington, D.C. that were here training from Afghanistan. And then just over the weekend, we had 3 guys from Cape Cod that disappeared too. Supposedly, they have them all rounded up. The 3 visited a strip joint on their way to Canada, from what I understand.
Oh, I'm sure.
But yeah, I mean, we've had hit the news about our military that are here in the United States, and they're supposed to track them down through Facebook, through LinkedIn, and visit them in their homes and slit their throats, was the words that I saw. So JD, what do you think?
I think the ISIS is the new bad guy. We've had several over the years. We've had Saddam, we've had Gaddafi, we've had the Syrian president, we've had Al-Qaeda, and ISIS is just the new bad guy, and because of them, we're going to get a whole new line of what do you call those things that annoy everybody?
Mosquitoes?
More laws that take away our freedoms, under the guise of providing more security. So I think it's just more of the same with a different name. I mean, who are those guys? From what I gathered, ISIS, they're just a bunch of extremists from all over Middle East. They want to carve a territory for themselves out there. And it, to me, sounds like more of the same stuff.
Well, what are your thoughts on the fact that we've created them to begin with?
It's pretty sad,
By we, I mean the United States.
Yeah, it's all about the petrodollar and keeping the military-industrial complex going. Because if you destabilize the area and you provide security, as long as people sell their oil in dollars, it's people patting each other behind their backs, and everybody wins. And it's this destabilization that creates these guys. It's the lack of opportunity that they don't have. It's the bombing of their homes. And, we would call, if those guys, let's say if this happened here, these guys are like patriots out there to those people, but we call them terrorists, so, but those guys are just trying to defend their homeland. They're being extreme, and it's just a mess. I think if we could get out of it and just not interfere, things would work themselves out. I think ISIS is being able to there.
Well, let me ask you this. There was and I'm going to use this term because, it's been a long night already. There's a conspiracy theory out there that, we went in to remove evidence in Syria with Assad with the chemical poisoning that was going on. Or if you remember, weapons of mass destruction that were being used on the citizens of Syria. And we went in to stop that and blow the place up. And it was questioned at that time whether or not we were doing that intentionally to cover something up. So the same theory is coming out about now, because I think, a lot of people that wear our tinfoil tightly think that, ISIS was created from the United States, where they got a lot of their weapons and training and whatnot. And we've also got a new group out. What is it? The Khorasan or something like that. That just here in the last few days, the name has been thrown around on the news. So, are we going in intentionally now to clean up a mess that we created to begin with and create havoc on, a lot of innocent people? What do you think? Ed, I'll throw that one out to you.
I'm sorry, what was that again?
Oh, no, I'm not going to repeat all that.
No, all that stuff is, excuse me, going back, I didn't listen to half the question you were saying, sorry. If I go back to the original one, those guys that were disappearing, they were just trying to get out of their country and go someplace better, I think. I don't think that they were doing that kind of stuff and creating. So if you think about that, and then you have the soldiers create, the government creating these problems overseas for us. Again, for every action there's an opposite reaction. So everything we do causes something. So, when you send the soldiers over there to fight, fine, they do that. But you got to finish your job. You can't, it's like getting into a fight with a bully and then letting him get back up. You got a lucky punch, you got him down, keep him down. Don't let him get back up, because he's just going to tear you apart when he gets up. And that's what they're doing. They're sneaking back into the country. They're using all kinds of distractions, and they're using our own ways and civility against us. And because they're not civil. They're a bunch of animals for the most part. They don't think they're being animals, but they are, at least to us, or the way we think. See, the American population has been civilized so long and politically correct with everything we do and say, and they're not. If you go to a third world country and you hang out, you'll see that it's okay to be critical of everything and everybody, and it's not the wrong thing to do. It's just here. So, saying that again, yeah, we did create, the United States does create the problems that we have because of the left, I think, mentality that, you got to be nice to them, you can't do this, you can't do that. No, it's an enemy. You get into a fight, you beat the shit out of them, and you don't let them breathe until they're done. And if you want to be nice, then you let them breathe a little bit, get them to surrender, or not, you beat them into submission. No matter which way you do, it's going to,
Okay, so are we creating a hornet's nest where they're going to, we've already heard the news reports, and a lot of people right now are watching what's going on behind them, because a lot of people are scared that they're going to attack us here in the United States. Soft targets, specifically. We're talking schools, bridges, arenas, stadiums, malls, those kind of things. Do you think that they're going to attack us here? What do you think the chances are on a scale of 1 to 10?
7.
Okay.
They're already here. Here's a perfect example. You'll remember this one. When you and I first met, when we first were married or whatever, about 15 years ago, where my father lives, there was a cell, a sleeper cell, that was about 4 blocks away from where he lives, that these were Muslim guys that were trying to blow up Brooklyn. Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah, I do.
So they were here. How do we know? How did they get it? They were all here on student visas back in the day when that was the hot thing to do. So they got past that. Now they come across as Mexican citizens, and of course Obama's letting them all come in, giving them money and making us pay for all the stuff that they want. But they're here already.
Well, they've been coming in a lot longer than Obama's been president too. So
yeah, for the most part, but they're using the new Mexican borders to do it because we shut off the airlines for them and we shut off the flight pattern. So now they're coming in from a different country.
JD, what do you think? Are you concerned about them attacking us here in the United States?
I think it's just a matter of time before it happens again. and they found everything from prayer rugs to Quran books out in the desert. And rumor has it that they're working with the cartels, the Mexican cartels, to get them going. And to me, the government is allowing it to happen for a reason.
What do you think that is?
And just to create more destabilization inside the country. Because look what 9/11 did to our liberties and to our freedoms, and plus it'd be a great distraction from what's happening economically.
Well, do you think that's part of it? Do you think they're distracting us on the right side with stuff they're intentionally doing on the left side so we don't pay attention until it's too late?
Yeah, absolutely. While everybody's talking about this, the price of food's going up. The feds are keeping the printing going, and they can't do it forever. There's 100 million people on food stamps and receiving some kind of assistance from the government. 49 million people on food stamps, 100 million receiving some kind of assistance from the government. And I think it's just a diversion, of our attentions. And then when it does blow up, they all made us look the other way, and now they have a whole new reason to tighten security and to give more military vehicles to everybody and to basically get into our lives. I think it's just a diversion, to be honest. Not necessarily like a false flag, but they're using it to their advantage. Haven't we known that the border has been open for how many years now? Forever. Yeah.
And
we know this.
You got to wonder, our focus is on the border with Mexico. But 3 of these guys that decided to look for extracurricular activity over the weekend were caught going across the northern border. And I've been screaming for a while now, always in the news. And we heard this a little bit earlier on G. Michael's show. When they're screaming at us on the mainstream media to pay attention to this, you really need to be paying attention to quite the opposite. So what's been coming across through Canada is my question.
Yeah, and there's all kinds of things going on, Imagine, it's just sad the way the world works. If people would leave each other alone to produce goods and services so that we can serve each other, everybody could live a better life in peace. But it can't be that way for some reason.
No, because people want control. They want power.
Yeah, I can't imagine what that feeling is like, because I don't care what people do, with their lives, as long as they're not bothering me.
Have you done anything?
So I don't get what kind of.
Have you done anything specifically
like what?
To protect or change how you do things here recently with all the news coming out?
Well, just more of the same stuff that I've been doing for the last couple of years since I got into this. You learn new skills, you prioritize where you spend your money.
What about security-wise? I don't want specifics, like I purchased this, and this, but are you avoiding places like the mall?
No, I live in a place that it's pretty mellow. I don't think this could be a terrorist target. However, with the economy going down, violence and robberies, they are going up. So I did beef up the security in the house recently, and made sure I have a way to keep things peaceful in case somebody tries to threaten me and my family. But you almost have to live two lives, because you live in the real world. You got to pay your bills, you got to make money, but at the same time, you have to be prepared in case something happens.
Well, there's going to come a point, I think, where we're going to have to bow out of the life that we live now if it continues on the way that it is. And the question I know a lot of people are throwing out there is, when does that happen? Susan, you have kids that, aren't small. Some of them have left the nest and stuff. Are you guys doing anything, you and I have talked about, everything that's going on in the news specifically, and what we can do to protect our children.
Oh, absolutely. Especially, our oldest girls. We've got one that's, literally, I don't know what, 3 hours away now, going to school. And before she left, she knows the lifestyle we lead. She knows we're not the typical Norton family or whatever. And whenever she comes home and we talk about stuff, before she went back down to school again this year, we just went over things, things you need to keep an eye on, if something was to happen, make sure you have this, and this. We've got that game plan just in case, because.
Do you shelter your children from the news, or is it making it easier to talk to them about what you would do in certain situations?
I'm that horrible parent that people think that I share too much with my children. But I guess the issue is I rather them experience it here at a young age and grow up and have a thought process before they're thrown into it. My youngest kids, if something happens, school, because of where we live, is a little further away. They know what to do if something were to happen. If they were home alone, they know what to do if something were to happen. And we've discussed things that are going on. And the other thing, they watched this thing called Channel 1 in the morning, where it broadcasted everything that happened last night today. So, they're already seeing that at the school. And they come home and they're like, well, this is what it says. I'm like, well, honey, of course that's what they're going to say.
So they're getting it
in a way they're starting to spoon feed it to the kids in what they want them to know. Yeah, but the thing is, I don't like that. I don't, and this is probably going to sound horrible in itself, I don't want them telling my children what's going on, because A, they're going to tell them what they want them to know and give it to them in a light that it benefits whatever they're trying to sell, if that makes sense.
Well, Jules brought up a point earlier today about using mainstream media and that kind of stuff as a tool to use in your arsenal to throw out there that, this is what's wrong. This isn't correct. This is the actual truth. This is what they're wanting you to see and to do, and how do they want you to react? Is it possible that? I'm going to throw out a scenario here, and I'm going to pull this one straight from the headlines here in Indianapolis, because it's quite concerning. With everything else that's been going on here. I don't know, a lot of people realize, but we bypassed Chicago as the murder capital of the world this year because of everything that's going on here. And over the weekend, we had 2 issues that went on. The first one was a gun store was robbed by 3 guys, and they shot the owner of the gun shop in the head, and stole, I think, 47 guns from his place. The same weekend, now they've caught 3 of the guys that did it, and guess what? They all live in Indianapolis. And then on top of that, we had in this is going to be two separate issues, but we had a gun store here in Indianapolis that I guess they were loading up to go to a gun show on Saturday morning or Sunday morning, something like that. But they loaded all of their toys into the back of a trailer, and the trailer came up missing the next morning, sometime overnight. And within this trailer was Eddie, and you might be able to tell everybody because I don't remember what exactly was in there, but let's just say there were a lot of machine guns. So tracking all of this back to Indianapolis, it looks like we have the gangs that are here arming themselves with machine guns. There's no other way around it. These guns were all found within Indianapolis. I know they were questioning whether they were already in Chicago or out of state or out of the country already, but in fact they found several of these, not all of them, but several of them in Indianapolis. So now we have gangs on top of everything else arming themselves with machine guns, full auto.
Yeah. Did you want me to go over what they did and how they did and how stupid it was?
Yeah, I mean, go ahead.
All right, I've been wanting to vent on this because, all right, here's the thing. People are defending the guy who owns the gun shop that did this. You know what? He's the victim, and I'm sorry for that. However, you know, you act like food you're going to get eaten, right? We all believe in that. So why would you load up a trailer with, I think it was over a dozen machine guns? There were 2 AK-47s, 3 M16, 5 MP5s, 1 SAW, squad automatic weapon. That is an actual Army machine gun. Then the other one was a Tommy gun, an Uzi, a Beretta full auto, a bunch of SBRs and shotguns that, you know, SBS is short barrel shotguns. Okay, you load all that garbage in the trailer the night before you close and then let it sit in your parking lot for what, 8-10 hours until you come up the next morning and get it? How stupid is that? And then they argue the point that, oh, well, we can take that stuff and we can, you know, well, how about your home? You know what? My home has an alarm, you idiot. Somebody breaks into my home, they only have 10 minutes before the cops show up, whether I'm home or not. If I'm home, they're in trouble. If I'm not home, they've got 10 minutes to steal what they can. Putting it in a trailer outside is just stupid because they don't have an alarm on a trailer. If they would have left it in the building, there's an alarm in the building. By the time they got in the safe, they wouldn't have got anything because it would take them more than half an hour to break into the safe.
So do you guys think that the gangs out there are arming themselves? Do you think they're affiliated with ISIS? Do you think this is a bigger issue that needs dealt with? JD, what do you think?
Well, I think the gangs are they're arming themselves mainly for the drug war, you know.
So do you think they're opposed to ISIS? Is it a separate gang issue, or are we caught in the middle of a turf war here?
I think it depends on, I'm sure certain gangs are getting bad with terrorists, but I'm not sure all of them are. I'm not sure if those guys that hit Indianapolis, they're your area, if they are. But I think what drives them, gangs in general, is the drug market that they operate. They basically own the whole thing. You know, back in the Prohibition days, when alcohol was a problem, Al Capone was around, made a name for himself, selling alcohol and giving access to people. And then Prohibition was gone, and now these bootleggers are out of business. So I think drugs should be made legal. All of them. I don't care if somebody wants to inject crocodile, as long as they do it on their own dime, and as long as they don't come collect unemployment later, you know, or some kind of disability. And I think it will take all these guys out of business. What I'm seeing from Colorado is that they've taken a hit from the legalization because
well, the Girl Scouts are making a small fortune off cookies.
Yeah.
Where's my 10 minutes, damn it?
they're taking a hit in Colorado because a user is most likely to go to a place where they can just walk in, see a whole bunch of different kinds of marijuana or whatever they want to smoke. And they pay a little bit more, but they're not dealing with a shady guy, and worried about getting arrested. So I think that would apply to all drugs if they would get legalized. And I think that would go down because then you have legit people who are going to get into the marketplace. All these big drug companies, they can make all these drugs and sell it to Walgreens, So I think the laws make all these gang-related problems possible in two ways. One is the drug, and the second is putting these guys away and giving them prison sentences and basically feeding them.
Yeah, we're feeding them and clothing them for free.
Yeah, say, hey, lift some weights, make some new connections.
Yeah.
And you're out of here in 5 years. And I think that doesn't make sense. And there's also, when the government takes the guns away and makes the citizens unable to defend themselves, it's harder to thin the herd. If everybody has a way to defend themselves, these guys prey on people. Naturally, they're going to be sent 6 feet under because sooner or later they're going to meet somebody that will dispatch them to the afterlife.
But will they? I mean, let me ask you this, because trying to find that perfect, and we've talked about it before, all of us off-grid, away from people, we're tired of society, we just want to live our lives, we want to be able to raise our kids so they're not dead because they got shot through the side of our house by some, gang member going by and stuff like that. But, we all are dispersed across the United States. We're not all going to get, what are you going to need now? 300 acres before somebody finds you? It's not like it was back in the 1900s. We're just that populated, especially on the East Coast. And, damn it, there's nothing wrong with having electricity or anything like that. It's just, is it mishandled? Yes. But sometimes I think we get caught up in the fact that, we've progressed as a society and we have some really cool things like the internet and things like that. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's coming to the point, it seems to me, where we've talked about evil versus good, and there's always supposed to be, there's balance. But it seems to me like we're going to end up choosing between the lesser of two evils.
But is there such a thing?
What are your thoughts, Susan?
I don't think there is such a thing anymore.
What?
I think that there's a balance. I think there's good people that do evil things, and I've seen evil people do good things. And we would like to have that black and white, but with everything that's going on, I think there's too much gray. And I think trying to separate is the hard part.
Well, how do we get that either balanced or swung back in the right direction?
I think you're going to have to do it on your own, for your own family. You're going to have to decide, okay, do you want to be a part of all this or do you not? And if you don't, then you need to take the appropriate steps for it to not be that way. And then how far do you go?
But those of us that are aware of it now, do we have to wait until more people get on the bandwagon before we can relax? Because it's like high intensity stress right now for a lot of people.
I think, and you and I have talked about this a lot. When do you pull that plug? When do you say enough's enough?
And where do you even go anymore? I mean, we've talked about
exactly.
it. Where in the world are you going to be safe?
I don't think there is such a place anymore. It just, if you want to throw that out there, okay, so you go in the middle of nowhere where you think nobody's going to see. Well, hello, don't we have drones to make sure that people are where they're supposed to be, doing what they're supposed to be doing? I mean, just because you're in the middle of nowhere doesn't mean that Big Brother's still not watching you. You know, you go buy land and you go start doing all this while the government is making it illegal for you not to be hooked up to the grid. Even if you do have solar, well, you still have to be hooked up to electricity, and in some places they're taxing you for it. If you're hooked up to where you have the rainwater, if that's allowed in your state, they're going to start taxing you for that.
Well, what's it going to take for people, and I'll throw this out to all three of you, what do you think it's going to take for people to finally say, I've had enough, and finally get where we need to be in order to live a life and stand up to the government? We've seen it happen in other countries. We haven't seen it happen here. I mean, the motorcycle guys tried it, you know, that kind of panned out. I know the truckers talked about it. That didn't happen. You know, what's it going to take for people here in the United States in order to stand up and say, you know, I fucking had enough. I'm done.
Judgment Day.
I mean, but unfortunately, we live in a democracy. The majority of people are never going to feel like that. Because they're getting fed for free. They're getting their checks in the mail. They don't need to produce anything. All they need to do is accept the government, you know, the things that make our lives hard. Most of these people, they don't deal with it, and they keep people in power. They'll keep making life hell for everybody.
So our government needs to go away completely, or what are your thoughts there?
I think they just need to get out of the way, you know. I mean,
do we need some kind of government?
It's gotten to a point where it's just ridiculous. Like, for example, if somebody gets laid off from their job and they know how to cook, they can't bake bread in their kitchen to sell to their friends and family without breaking law.
They can't even give it. There was a kid in the news the other day that bought his school lunch, and there was a kid, a friend of his, that didn't have money and couldn't afford it. So he gave his school lunch to his friend, and he ended up getting detention.
That's so freaking messed up.
I mean, why does the government care who eats the lunch? You know, what if the kid wants to divide it in 10 pieces and give one to each of their friends? What does the government need to care?
That's the point. What does the government need to care? Because, you know, like we talked about at the beginning of the show, it comes down to control. If they don't control you, they don't have the power. And we can't even, it's to the point we can't breathe in and we can't breathe out without doing something wrong. And I think a lot of people are starting to wake up to that fact, just not fast enough. But we are 20 minutes till we end. So JD, before we forget or run out of time, do you want to do your deck thingy?
My deck thingy. Which deck thingy?
You guys in the chat room, pay attention here. Let's lighten the mood a little bit, because I already cussed once. But get your Google fingers out, and let's. JD, what are you going to give away?
I'm going to give away an unreleased deck based on A. American's book.
We had Angry American on here a few months back. If you're not familiar with his series of books, Forsaking Home, Going Home, all of those, get them. He does a great job. A lot of preparedness information in there, which I absolutely adore about that genre, is the stuff that you can learn. And it's nice because it's not a technical manual. And a lot of people, they buy the tech manuals and they can't remember everything. But when you read it in a fiction series, you catch yourself thinking about, what would so-and-so do? And I remember so-and-so did it this way. And it makes it so much easier for people to learn from, in my opinion. So, I think I've wasted enough time for the guys in the chat room to get ready. So, JD, do you have a question, or do you want us to, what do you want to do?
I tell you what I want to do. I want to give this away to whoever has given Laurie's book a review on Amazon. If you have given her a review on Amazon, send it to her. Your email is pepperchicks@yahoo.com, right?
Yeah.
And let's see who has written a review. Send the link over to Laurie, and then she'll pick somebody at random to win the deck. And this deck is not even out yet. It won't be out for a few weeks, so you get to have it before everybody else.
Actually, one of our guests has actually done a review. Susan did a review on the book. So
nice.
Yes, I did. I was actually the second one, I think.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's Mr. Jim Michael in the chat room. How's it going, Jim Michael?
Well, I have to, hey, shout out to everybody in the chat room tonight. You guys are awesome. And to Jules for allowing us to do this. The deck is coming. It's after A Americans for Annie's book, Alpha Farm. But here's a question for everybody, since everybody's fingers are out there, and I don't want you guys to fall asleep or anything like that. So, and I've talked about this before in the past on one of the shows, and I actually have this growing in my garden. So what perennial vegetable is very closely in relation to a potato, but it's a perennial, so it'll come back every year, and it grows probably 10 to 12 feet high, and it looks like a sunflower. Oh, I laugh in the background, so I'm assuming Susan knows what the answer is. It's a perennial vegetable. Remember, we talk about stealth gardening, and in a downgrade situation, you don't want to plant a typical garden because everybody in the free world walking by will see that you have a garden. We've talked about survival gardening and how to hide certain things so people don't notice them. And I've talked about this perennial vegetable before, and it's very reminiscent of a potato. I mean, you can peel it, you can fry it, the whole 9 yards, just like a potato, and it looks like Vince got it. But it grows about 10 to 12 feet high, and they bloom at this time of the year right now, and they look a lot like a sunflower. But congratulations, JD. Can we give Vince a deck too? The answer is a Jerusalem artichoke.
Sounds good.
No, it's not a weed, Salty. It's a Jerusalem artichoke. I think potatoes are like the perfect vegetable to begin with. So looking at replacing that, being a prepper is about replication of things. And Eddie's said it's a weed too. Oh my goodness, both of you. I'm going to beat your heads together.
There's actually a really good video, Lori, on YouTube, and I forget who did it. They did a whole series on the type of gardening. I'll have to figure it out and put it on your website.
Okay,
because
that works.
Watched it. But it was really neat because they had, literally the side of their yard looked like an overgrown forest.
But how much food was actually in there?
Oh my gosh.
And people would walk by and probably would not notice it because it looks like an overgrown forest.
Well, exactly. It looks honestly like it looked like they have never mowed their yard type of thing, and you would not have gone looking for it. But they had every kind of fruit and vegetable and herb, and just there's abundance there. And I never thought of doing it that particular way.
Yeah, and it's the time of the year now. I should take pictures of mine because they're absolutely gorgeous, and they just look like giant flowers, sunflowers right now. But you pull them up out of the ground, you shake the roots off, and then you peel them, just like, clean them up, peel them like you would a potato, fry them up, serve them the same way you would potatoes. And they're a perennial, so any little bit of root that's left in the ground will reproduce the next year. They are very invasive, though, so you need to plant them someplace where, they're not going to take over the world. But really good plant to have in your yard, in your garden, in your survival. And another one to learn what it looks like in case you are out and about and have to forage. What it looks like. You can eat it. I know. which I should invite him on the show. As soon as I remember his name now, I just had a brain fart.
They're contagious when I
Creek Stewart, the guy here from Indianapolis, that's on the Weather Channel now with their survival show. He had a segment about Jerusalem artichokes on his show a couple weeks ago, and the guy ate way too many of them. And one thing people don't realize in a survival situation, you can't do that. It'll mess your body up. That's why I get bothered when we see these groups that do nothing but promote freeze-dried food packages and that's the only food supply you need. Here's a year's worth or here's 5 years worth. It's going to really screw up your body to do that. So you have to be very careful there. And yes, I said brain fart. You guys can laugh all you want to. But all right, let's go on. So Vince and Susan, you both get a deck of Angry American's new deck coming out here about another week, huh?
Woohoo.
Yes, it will be. I'm going to wait until people get paid around the 1st, then I'm going to release it.
I like that strategy.
So, no, but besides the timing, he's going out of town tomorrow, and I'm waiting on his approval. So I'm just going to wait to hear back. I think he has a lot going on right now, so maybe through his wife, he'll say something on Facebook between now and the end of the month, so that by the 1st we can release it. So that's my goal. If I don't hear anything from him, I'm going to bug him here in a few days.
Okay,
But
sounds good.
that's the plan. I got to wait, make sure he's happy with it.
Okay, cool. I'm looking forward to it because we have used and abused the other 3 decks like no tomorrow, haven't we?
Yes.
But I mean,
Curveballs,
honestly, how many people have opened their eyes up and opened their minds up, and it's going to really help, JD. I mean, seriously, you probably will never know how many people, if we do have a downgrade situation, or even now, how many people you've helped, maybe even stay alive.
Well, that's a good feeling to have. I think we all do, and we all help each other. If it weren't for you helping me get the word out there, this would be a game that only me and my buddies would be playing. So I think you had a big part in helping this get out there, and I really thank you for it.
It's been my pleasure, and we need to get off this sappy stuff now. And all right, who has a question before it gets sick? Oh,
Eat
JD, you're
some
just
Jerusalem
awesome.
artichoke.
I think I'm gonna throw up a little bit.
Hey, Lori,
Yeah.
put out that question about the food today. What we talked about this morning about
You never cooking again?
today.
I'm a damn good cook, woman.
I wasn't talking about you. Guys.
Oh,
No, about the food bank.
well, okay. Well, we can swap that around, I guess. So, I don't know. Okay. So, you have friends and that qualify to go to a food bank in order to get extra food for their family. And let's say it's a situation where you also qualify, but you don't need it. You qualify, but you don't need it. You've taken steps so you don't have to do that. But your friends do, let's say. And so they've asked you if you would go with them, so that way they could actually use you to get themselves extra food. Is that morally right or not? Did I completely screw that up, or did you understand it? So you have friends that are in need of using a food bank because of lack of income and whatnot, and you also could qualify for that, but you've taken steps that you don't need to utilize it. Your friends have come to you and they've asked you, hey, would you go with me so that way you can pick up your part of the food and then just give it to me? Would you do it? Is it morally right? Susan, what do you think?
My honest answer?
Yeah.
I would do it.
Why?
Because typically I'm nice. No. I think if I had a friend who I knew their family and I knew that they needed it, I would help them out anyway. I mean, that's what we do. You know what I mean? If I knew it was going to take it out of the, like, if it was a numbered supply, and it was going to take it out of the mouth of another family, then I wouldn't. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I mean, if it was just an open food bank and you could go and you could take what you needed and it was all good and fine, I would in a heartbeat.
Okay.
You know, I would help my friend out. Is it morally right? Well, technically, they're giving me the food for my family. If this person's my friend and I'm that close with them that they would come and ask me that, I would consider them my family. So, I mean, you can justify it any way you want. But, yeah, I think I would.
JD, what would you do?
I would definitely do it because here's the thing. If it's a food bank, is it a taxpayer-funded food bank? Because if that's the case, the food's already been paid for by you and me and everybody else.
Not necessarily, because you qualify. There's a very good chance you haven't contributed to it.
So there's a higher chance what?
That you haven't contributed to it.
Yeah, I will do it for sure.
All right. No qualms about...
Heck yes. No regrets. I'll be happy to do it.
See, I don't think I could, because I would be afraid of, well, not afraid, but I would be thinking about, because food banks don't have that much supply, so what I'm taking to give to someone as a double portion would be, in fact, taking it out of someone else's mouth that might actually need it.
I don't know. If I came to you and said, Lori, you know how bad our family's struggling. You know how bad things are. Would you do this for me? Knowing how close you and I are. You're going to sit there knowing I have kids sitting at home and tell me no?
Okay, well, first of all, I would smack you upside the head.
I understand that, but that's not what I'm saying.
No,
if I came to you...
Second of all, I would look at what can I give you myself and what can we do in order to make sure that you have food, like being able to get a garden going and all of that kind of stuff first.
Well, the garden failed because of the weather.
I've done everything. Stuff that you can plant.
Oh, I agree. But I'm just saying, worst case scenario, you're going to seriously tell me no.
You know, it would depend on the circumstance. But if you're standing in line with a bunch of other people, yeah, it would be really hard to do that for me.
Hey, before we go, let me change it up a little bit. Think of it as standing on a chow line for homeless people. Okay, so you guys are all on this line, and you've eaten already because somebody gave you food. So now what happens is you get that double portion, and you give it to the friend beside you, but now the 3 people or 5 people at the end of the line go hungry because you gave somebody else a double portion. You see how that goes if you think of it as a food line for that
day? Eddie threw out a curveball.
No, because if you think of the food bank as a food line or a soup line, and for a homeless, I used to work in homeless shelters.
I think Susan's point is we don't know those other people, so it makes it easier to maybe not think of them as human or care.
It's not that, but you think of your family first. We've always talked about you take care of your own first. I agree with what you were saying.
If you get enough food, so you're not going to starve. You might be hungry, but you're not going to starve. Is that enough, or would you want more?
That goes back to that greedy American thing again, you know that, right?
Yes, I agree with that. Because
you
have to look, so everybody, I know it's being a little socialist, but you have to think about give everybody a little bit so nobody starves to death. Yeah, you're going to be hungrier, but you're not going to starve to death, and everybody will get a little bit.
Oh, JD, there's your favorite word, socialist. What do you think?
I don't, you know how I feel about socialists. It is a socialist concept. But when you're sharing food like that and you get into a prepper community, guess what? When it comes to the food, you're going to be socialist because you only have so much food to meet out per person. So you're damn right. If I have a set amount of food, I'm going to be real shitty about somebody going back for seconds on that chow line because the food that they're gorging themselves on that day is going to be less food that we have for the next day and the day after that. So you have to think about rationing too. People don't, a lot of people, they think here and now, right this. You're not thinking a week or 6 months in advance. So when you get into food like that, I'm going to be a socialist when it comes to food.
But
because I want you to have to eat as much as I have had to eat. And what about the guy who's a laborer who's been chopping wood and shoveling dirt versus the person who's just been kind of sitting in the office, moving papers around or doing stuff like that?
Well, I think there's a lot of anger within our society now for that very reason. We see that now within our society. We saw it this past winter when the EBT cards went down, and we saw people in Walmart with 6 carts just jam-packed with stuff, and they had a show on TV where the welfare people were eating lobster and drinking champagne. Well, they were eating lobster and steak and stuff. And those of us that are working our asses off to pay for them not to work. And it's easy for them not to work. And I'm not saying, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that some people don't need it, because they do. They absolutely do, and they need taken care of. But there's also a lot of abuse out there. And is this going to play into how people are treated when shit hits the fan? JD, what do you think? Do you think that anger that we feel now is going to play out after a downgrade situation?
Well, yes. If, there are the people who are suffering, but if they're doing something, it's no different than then and now, because it's all about what people are doing to help the group, not in a socialist way. But hey, if I go out and offer a service that helps everybody, and in exchange, this person